Well, good evening to you all. Today we're going to talk about a really important subject. We're going to talk about verbs. Well, have you ever wondered, oh my god, I kind of want to learn something more about verbs. So, what is going to happen today? Before we start talking about verbs, it is really important to say that there are some grammatical categories. For instance, we have numbers, we have gender, we have person, cases, degrees, and definiteness. Well, all these grammatical categories, which I mentioned, they are not related to verbs, they are related to nouns. But now we're gonna start talking about verbs. And I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know about verbs. For instance, verb is a word or a group of words that expresses an action, an event, or a state. They can be transitive, intransitive, or linking verbs. For example, I'm gonna give you an example of a verb which denotes an action. I bought a new wallet. This is a transitive verb. If you want an intransitive verb, I could mention the verb to walk. She walks fast. There is also a linking verb, such as the verb to be. Yes, the verb to be. I'm sure you have heard it before. So my example is, they are French. Moving on, you can divide verbs in two types of verbs. You have the lexical verbs and you have the auxiliary verbs. Well, lexical verbs, they're also called main verbs, which can be modified by auxiliary verbs in verb phrases. They are an open class, and all new lexical verbs have regular inflections. An example of a lexical verb is the verb to run. I could give you a common example, such as, he will run a marathon next year. Auxiliary verbs are more complex. We have primary auxiliaries, such as the verb to be and the verb to have. And we have modal auxiliaries. They are will, would, might, shall, should, can, could, and ought to. I need to mention that the verb to be and the verb to have, they can be both. They can be lexical verbs and they can be auxiliary verbs. I already mentioned two examples of the verb to be when it's functioning as an auxiliary verb. Further examples will be provided to you in your handout. Well, now that we've explained everything you need to know about verbs, we are going to extend them further. For instance, the verb system is divided into 6 parts, we could say. The first part is the verb tense. We also have concerns regarding aspect, finiteness, voice, modality, and mood. So I'm going to provide you a definition of verb tense. Just a minute. So tense is the linguistic indication of the time of an action, highlighting the time of an event in respect to the moment of speaking. It is not a synonym of time. Please pay attention to this. It is not a synonym of time. Well, according to Kent Singleton, what defines the tense is the nature of the action, the whole played by the verb, and you have to ask 4 questions. You have to ask if the action or if the state is permanent or temporary. You also need to pay attention if the action or the state has already been concluded or if it's still going on. You have to notice if they are consecutive or if they are simultaneous. And the action itself, it has a key importance to define the verb tense. So you have to ask in which moment it occurred, and you have to relate it to the point in which the action actually occurred. So we have two tenses. We have the present tense and the past tense. Please notice that there is no future tense. The present tense is used for 6 purposes. It is used for habitual actions, states, generalizations, statements of timeless, facts, and of future certainties, proverbial statements, instantaneous commentary, narratives, historical narratives, and framing information. The past tense is also used for 5 purposes. It is used for an event or a state with explicit or implied past time reference, narrative with explicit or implied past time reference, habitual action with explicit or implied past time reference, and also to express politeness and to express tentative hypothetical conditional. Well, now that we know everything about verb tenses, we have to notice the other important characteristics of the verbs. One of them is the aspect of the verb, which can be simple, progressive, continuous, or perfective. Well, when it is simple, it's really simple to understand it. For instance, she studies morphology. An example of a simple aspect of a verb in a past tense would be she studied morphology for 6 hours yesterday. I'm not gonna bother you with all with a lot of other examples explaining the progressive continuous characteristic, progressive continuous aspect of the verbs, and I'm not gonna bother you with lots and lots of examples regarding the perfective aspect of the verb. You can find further examples of these aspects in your handout, which will be provided to you thoroughly by our beloved Professor John. I'm gonna talk about finiteness, and afterwards I'm gonna give the word to my classmate Thales, who is gonna talk to you about mood, voice, and modality. Well, so just to finish this first part of our presentation, finiteness is divided in finite verbs and non-finite verbs. I have to ask you for your... No, sorry, I do not have to ask you for anything, but I need to apologize because I'm not really sure if the pronunciation is finiteness. So if it's not, please do not take this into consideration. Anyway, an example of a finite verb would be one which we provided to you, that lexical verbs are definitely common and should be learned easily by foreign students. This is an example of a definite verb, the verb are, and this sentence is used as a definite verb. A non-finite verb, sorry, I was pronouncing definite, but it's finite, a finite verb. A non-finite verb would be, for instance, a verb in the ing form. For example, we were recording this current presentation, paying attention to every single detail with regard to all types of verbs concerning their specific characteristics, such as their tense and finiteness. So with this last example, I finish my current presentation, and I just would like to highlight that paying is a verb in a non-finite state of finiteness, and the verb record in the example we were recording is a finite verb because it is not in the ing reduced form, which we call uma cláusula reduzida in Portuguese. Okay, so thank you for your attention, and I hope you have enjoyed the first part of our presentation.